we'll record it so that,
Absolutely.
Arlene, if you get to see this, we hold you in our hearts here with us
Yes.
right now.
Right.
So, um,
Sure. Sure.
yeah, just want to say
Thank
thank you for coming to, share memories of Gil, experiences with Gil, and, Cathy and I have been talking this over for a while, and, uh, I just wish that we could have been on the jet plane and gone out to Arkansas. Yesterday was the in-person memorial
We just
service.
found out today that it was yesterday.
Well, I actually had known it for a while, and then I got it confused with somebody else's memorial service at one point and thought it was
I
a
mean,
couple.
I just found out. I
Well,
looked, yeah.
just to say that, we'll just take our time to, share memories. Randy has, something special for us, which is, uh, an obituary that's written by Gil's sister, and
Well, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
well, it's just what's phenomenal about it is how honest and truthful and true to Gil
It's
this
incredible,
obituary
and
is,
people
which
can go
is
to the
not like
site.
most obituaries. So in a
Yeah,
bit, we'll ask Randy to do that.
but
Cathy, would you?
don't
Excuse me?
forget, I'm got to read his story too.
Okay, yeah. Cathy, would you, tell us about your friend and what she's going to offer?
Wonderful, thank you. So Arlene, sending so much love to you and Gil's family, whoever sees this video. We love Gil so much. He is still such an incredible soul and enriched our lives in such amazing ways that will be forever special to us. And I had asked my friend Marjan, who's just appeared in one of the squares, who is from Iran, and I'd asked if she could recite the 101 names of God in Persian, because one of my fondest memories was of Gil himself reciting them forcefully at Caesar's Head to myself and to my husband Tom.
But not
Jai
in,
Baba.
but not in Persian.
In Persian.
Yeah, he
In
did in
Persian?
Persian.
Bill did it in Persian?
Yep, yes.
Wow.
That
Jai
takes
Baba. Jai
that
Baba.
takes some.
So, I wonder if we could just, say together our three Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jays, and Marjan, if you are ready, if
Yes.
you would start with that just to put us right into, um, our place of mystery, for love of God and Meher Baba.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Avatar Meher Baba Ki Jai. Avatar Meher
Meher
Baba
Baba
Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
Avatar Meher Baba Ki
Ki
Jai.
Jai.
ایزد هروز توان هروز آگاه هروز خدا ابدا ابی انجام بونش فراختن ها جمع فراجت را تو مفید ارونده پرونده انیاب همیاب آدر اچم گیرا چمنا سپنا افسا ناشا پرورا پانا آین آینه ان آینه خرشیتون مینوتون واشنا هروستوم هو سپاس حمید هر نیکفر بیشترنا تر و بیش انوشک فرشک پژوهیده خاور پر اوخشیا ابرزا استو رفو ورون افریفته افریفته ادوای کامرد فرمان کام فرمانده ایختن افراموش همرانا شنایا اترس ای بیش افراستوم همچون مینوشیگر امینوگر مینو نهب آدر بادگر آدر نمگر باد آدرگر باد نمگر باد گلگر باد گرتوم آدر کبریتوم بادگر جای آبتوم گلادرگر گلدادگر گلنمگر گر گراگرگر آگراگر گراگرگر اگمان ازمان اخوان آمیش هوشیار پشوتنا پدمانی خداوند فیروزگر اورمزد ابرین کهن توان ابرین نو توان وسپار اهو خاور اویخشدار دادار رایومن خرمن داور کرفگر بوختار فروشوشگر Jai Baba.
Wow. Did you even breathe when you were doing that?
That's incredible. How did
I've never heard it. I never heard
Gil
it.
learn that in Persian?
Yeah, that's a part of our, this is a part of our prayers in Zoroastrian religion.
It is a part of it. Oh, okay.
Mhm. Mm. So if I could share where I heard that, for those of you who have been to Caesar's Head State Park outside of Brevard, where Baba went on his way westward toward what ended up to be Prague in the accident.
That's in South Carolina.
Yes, yes. No, Brevard, North Carolina.
Caesar's Head in
North
That's right.
Carolina.
Yeah. Close to the South
The
Carolina line.
mountains,
Yeah, okay.
the mountains of North Carolina.
Okay.
I lived there, so
And I went on that route.
go ahead, Cathy.
There is a lookout, and then you can walk down steps to a big cleavage in the mountain where the mountain separated, and there's, I think I called it the Devil's Causeway or something. There's this tremendous place you can walk through these huge mountains on either side, but they had parted. And Gil said he would go there and stand there and recite the 101 names of God, which he did for us. And they just reverberated off of these rocks, off of these mountainsides. I mean, it was something I will absolutely never forget. So
How long ago was that?
probably like 20 years ago.
20 years.
Yeah.
Incredible.
Extraordinary.
Thank you, Marjan. That's very powerful.
I'd like to step in and share a much earlier chapter with Gil. My husband Philip and I lived with our little son Leaf in the mountains near Brevard, 1979 through around 1985, and that's when I met Gil. His mother and father, they were from South Carolina. His mother and father had built a little mountain cabin, little getaway cabin back up in the woods with a little waterfall and stream you had to drive over to get to their cabin. And when we met and got together, Gil would come to our house. Philip and I lived up on a hillside that overlooked the French Broad River floodplain, where the river had just come out of the high mountains and then, opening into the valleys. Before it got to be a big river over toward Asheville, Cathy, Chris.
What's it called? What's the river called?
The French Broad River.
French Broad.
We spent a lot of time together. And Gil and I were born the same year, 1951. So I just turned 73. Gil's birthday is in the winter.
January 19th.
Yeah, so he's a winter baby. But one of the extraordinary things about Gil that I noticed right away was his sweetness. So like a childlike innocence, a purity of heart, like nobody I had ever met before. Just with you and willing to be with you. And he had these silly things that he would say, I feel more like myself now than I did a while ago. And we'd laugh. And he worked at a camp outside of Brevard, a children's camp. And he was the guy who took all the laundry and washed the clothes and dried them and got them back out to the children. And his name for himself was the Laundry Rama. So that was Gil. He had an easy generosity about him. He had spent some time up in the Boston area studying with Georgia Sawa, if anyone remembers, the East-West Journal. Way back in the day, it was a periodical magazine that came out monthly that talked about natural foods and the macrobiotic way to eat. Well, Gil ate this way, and he didn't sit down and talk to me about the concepts. He came in with a bag full of groceries and got out the cutting board and the knife and started doing things, and he made so many meals for us. And that was his way, was just through living it, not through talking about it. So we had some really beautiful times together. We did a lot of chanting together, but these were the Hindu chants that we were doing at that time. So this is a
Oh,
picture
great.
of Gil decked out because we celebrated Krishna's birthday. So we had, we just pulled out anything. I gave him a scarf, and we were sort of cavorting around in my living room with just joy, just real joy. And I don't know where in the mountains this is. We went to lots of different places. We hiked lots of places together, but you can see a sort of steep hillside up behind Gil. And then the last picture that I have here is really sweet to me. This is after we had moved away from the mountains, and we had a fortunate opportunity arrangement to meet with Gil down at the center. This is my little son Leaf, giving Gil a hug, because Gil was like an uncle to Leaf. So they're sitting there on the footbridge across the lagoon at the Baba Center. And so when I moved away from the mountains about 1985 and came back to the Chapel Hill area, we stayed in touch by phone, and some of you will share, chapters of Gil's life that I wasn't so much a part of, but we always just stayed in touch by phone, whether he was, deeply engaged with Baba, which he was when I met him, or that chapter when he made a big detour around to Amma, the hugging guru in India, and spent time in India with her, and then came back around to Baba. But I'll just end what I have to say with the last time I saw Gil was at the Heartland Center, and he and Arlene had come from Harrison, Arkansas, a long drive for them at that time, and they're given their health and so on. And it was the 70th anniversary of Baba's crash, so 2 years ago this weekend.
That was the year they got married, according to what
And
the obit.
yeah, so I got to meet Arlene. I got to see Gil in this very different chapter of his life, where he was so hard pressed by Parkinson's and by really wretched trigeminal neuralgia that made him feel for Baba and everything that he went through. So as you said, Cathy, earlier, Arlene, we're with you this weekend, this very difficult weekend for you, with Gil's memorial service in Arkansas yesterday. And so we're holding our hearts open to you, to support you in any way that we can. So that's all for now. So who would like to?
I'd like to say something.
Yeah, Randy's got something special.
I've got a couple of things. First of all, I wrote a book called Finding God in North Carolina. Has everybody heard of that?
Yeah.
One? Well, Cathy has. The rest of you haven't?
No, we haven't.
We have
Okay.
the book.
You've read it?
I can't remember if I've read it, but we have it.
Okay, well, that's being honest. Gil is in the book. And it comes full circle. And I also want to say a little bit, because I looked up the obit that Carol is talking about. I've just going to highlight some of that. It's fairly long, but you can go online and see pictures of him and this obit by his sister. Cathy is the way that I heard about Gil. I wrote a book called Finding God in North Carolina, which you all can purchase if you want to. But anyway, it's 63 stories of people and how they heard about Baba in North Carolina. And but Gil, I called Cathy just for information because she was in Asheville. And I'm reading right now, it was in 2006. And she says that she had just met with Gil the day before, who's another Baba lover. And so she gave me his number. And I called him and I interviewed him. And I'm going to read that to you now. Or right after, and then a slight bit of about the obit. By the way, you can get Finding God in North Carolina online if you Google it and then download it. And then and Gil's story is in there. Oh, shoot, I had it. Okay. Where are you? Gil lived at that time in Rosman. And the main thing is that Baba went through Rosman in 1952. He went through about 10 different towns, one of the main ones being Brevard, and then the last one being Murphy. But so he actually lived in a town, and Carol also lived near there, that Baba had gone through. So I'm going to read it to you. I'm trying not to take up too much time. But he's the only one. He's completely unique, just like Gil. There's nobody else. I did it by city, and they all have a good number of people under that city. Under Rosman, there's one person.
Really tiny place.
Huh?
It's a really tiny place.
Yeah, tell us about it. What
Rosman, had a company store. Everybody went there to buy things. There was a laundromat. Everybody went there to do laundry. There was one traffic light, and there was a very, very active KKK that burned figures in effigy if a Black family moved into the school district.
Which
That's
state
So-
was
so
it in? Rosa?
North Carolina.
Okay.
That's one of the towns
Near
that Baba,
Brevard.
My
Yeah.
book is Finding God in North Carolina. And that's what I'm reading from.
Oh, okay.
So it has to be North Carolina. All right. So this is Gil speaking. I transcribed this. And I've had this story. I published this book in 2008. So this is 16 years ago. And so Gil says, he grew up in Columbia, South Carolina, not too far from the center. I'm not sure how far it is from the center. What, an hour maybe?
Couple of hours.
Couple of hours.
Yeah.
Well, he makes it sound like it's not too far. Anyway, we went to Myrtle Beach. Get this. We went to Myrtle Beach on weekends. This is in the 50s. And I'm sure we were down there when Baba was there in 56 and 58. So he's a kid. And he knows that he was there when Baba was there. But I never met him in the body. I always felt sorry about that and wished I could have when I was about 9 years old. So he was born in 1951, so it's probably around 1960. In the summertime, I had an experience in my bedroom. It was a warm, almost golden feeling that came over me and pervaded the room. He's 9. Okay. A still, quiet voice which started speaking to me, and it said, "You will come to a great master who won't be Jesus this time." That's pretty good. I saw a room which later appeared to be the one in the lagoon cabin from which this voice seemed to come. So even as a child, he had this incredible experience. My mother and grandmother were quite metaphysical. And I had a footnote to that. My mother and grandmother were not very metaphysical. That's me. Okay, we're quite metaphysical. That my mom read things from the Unity Church. Mom and dad used to have little meetings where people meditated. They would pray for each other and for healing. So they were searching all along and didn't believe exactly like everyone else at the time. In other words, not everybody was into unity. They were into being a Presbyterian or maybe a strange person like a Jewish person. That's a joke. Anyway, on and off, I had experience. This feels pure Gil to me because of these experiences. On and off, I had experiences like the sky was expanding. That's an amazing. It was really an expansion of consciousness. I felt that the presence of God. It was a real presence and huge, all pervading and magnificent. And I would experience it more at different times. It wasn't continuous, but it was just like a little glance now and then. So he moved to, in the late 60s, he moved to Myrtle Beach. He doesn't explain why, but he didn't know about Bob. And I did not find out about Bob until the 70s. I was going to the tech school in Conway, but I started getting blissed out. That to me also was the essence of him, because when he talks later in this story about meeting Kitty, and Kitty says, "You're too blissed out. You need to get a job," something like that. So he wasn't that comfortable seeing Kitty because she thought he over meditated. Anyway, I started getting blissed out, and I didn't know it was. I had some dreams, which I felt like I was in India, kind of like a must. I dreamed of a small house and a fence, which turned out to be the gateway at the center. Some years later, I saw a picture of Bob in a New Age magazine at an alternative bookstore in Colombia. I felt like I was looking at myself. There was an instant recognition. And so I'm going to try to skip some of this because it gets a little long. So I drove to Myrtle Beach, and this is how I got to the actual center. This is in the 70s. I drove to Myrtle Beach and I called the Chamber of Commerce, which I find funny because they didn't know, they'd never heard of the center. Asked where the Mayor Baba Center was, but nobody knew. At the Chamber of Commerce, and the center had been around for 30 years. Anyway, but I made it there eventually in my little Volkswagen. I wasn't sure I would make it if the alternator was acting up. The first person I met was Jane. When I met her, I felt like this is a pretty good description, Ingrid Bergman. That's his definition of Jane. She sent me over to meet Kitty and then went into the center. It was an experience, but it wasn't like the big experience yet to come. Okay, I'm going to skip one paragraph. Another time I was staying in the carriage house, which I stayed in many times because it's the single man's house, greenhouse. And I woke up in the middle of the night. There was this being with a big mustache over me with his hands on my chest. It seemed to be an astral experience. He had kind eyes, and I believe it was Baba. It startled me. Then he just faded out smiling. And the next morning, I got up and went down to the original kitchen and had a message that my grandfather had died. So there's some kind of interrelationship between Baba, the Baba vision, and his grandfather died. And this next part is sort of funny. My granddad was quite a character. He tended to binge drink, so he's not pulling any punches here, and could get pretty nasty. On those occasions, I didn't like him a whole lot. When I went to his funeral, I didn't feel anything negative or positive towards him. My consciousness was completely clear. Okay. All right, so I'm skipping another paragraph. Okay, he's still at the center, and suddenly someone would give me the message that Kitty wants to see you. So this is an important part of the story. And I would think, oh no, I don't want to see her. And the reason was Kitty would ask about my career and whether I knew any time when I would get married. She definitely didn't ask me that. And he laughed. He said that. She would say, you mustn't do all this meditation and read all these spiritual books. This is definitely unique to Gil. You don't need to do that. You'll become unbalanced and act like some of these must people. She also told me it's pure consciousness. Always remember this. So that's really stuck in my mind. The humor of Kitty was very serious that he was over getting too blissed out. He was working at a health food store, and this is kind of funny too. I was working at a health food store, and my manager was a gorgeous woman. And I kind of tried to put in my mind, I wish I was there. But anyway, and she had visited the center too. I had heard through the grapevine that Kitty actually knew this woman somehow, told her to take care of me or look out for me because of my mind. At work, my beautiful manager would say, you're trying to act like Ramakrishna again. Stop it. I would give anything in the world to have a conversation with Kitty now. And the next part is, I'm almost finished. At that time, and even now, I just feel elevated all the time. I don't think I've ever talked to anybody who said something like that. I certainly don't have that kind of thing. I feel elevated all the time. That's a lot of the time. And I get really interested in the musts. And I read an article about people with autism. He goes on to say that he worked with them for 20 years. I thought these people seemed to be like the musts. Maybe Baba wants me to work with them. Kitty had told me, you will do Baba's work. I got a job working in a group home for adults who had autism. When I would go into work, I would feel the presence enfold me. My superiors would comment that they could not understand how I could do so well with these folks who are often aggressive and challenging, and I had no formal education or experience in the field. I worked for over 20 years in this field and became a sort of hands-on consultant statewide, even without a university degree. I'm sure it was Baba who made my efforts effective. And he ends with this sentence: I have met at least a few very advanced teachers and spiritual masters, but it is always Baba who reels me back in, puts me to work with my heart open, my head in the clouds, and my feet on the ground. I really don't have a clue. Baba is the man, the God man. And I suspect a lot more than that.
That's amazing, Randy. Thank you that you wrote the book and that you got in touch with Cathy.
It was all just, Baba, but,
Amazing.
he was totally unique,
Yeah.
to have.
So let's shift now just to open to anyone who wants to share anything. And given time, as we come to the end of the hour, then Randy, if you've got some selections from the obituary,
Okay.
that share again with us. But is there anyone who has a memory of Gil that you'd like to, bring out for us all at this time? Okay, Jeff?
Somebody answer?
Yeah,
Jai
Jeff is
Baba.
going to
Jai
speak.
Baba.
Jai
Oh.
Baba. Jai Baba.
So Rachel, my wife, and I met Gil probably around 22 years ago when we moved to Asheville for 9 years.
Mm.
And meeting Gil was like a natural, easy, spontaneous connection. And a bundle of joy. As you said, Carol, He had an innocence like a child about him, and this infectious smile and this good nature, and just a very, very, very special soul. I consider Gil a soulmate friend. That's how close I feel that we were, and definitely my wife was just as close with Gil. So many beautiful times we had. He came over to our house many, many times, and Rachel would cook some really wonderful meals for all of us. And we would talk for hours and hours into the night, to the point that I had to go to sleep and they were still talking another couple of hours, very late at night. I was in a wonderful study group with Gil over at Unity Church. And actually, we're in a couple of different beautiful study groups. I can't think of the woman's name that we were in, but she was one of the older women in the area and a very fine, very spiritually sensitive human being. Gil Webb, that voice, that wonderful, down to earth, just his words just embraced you. Just I I saw Gil at a number of the Baba meetings, very low key. Didn't really say very much, but when he did speak, it was always with a very high awareness. Gil's mind was one of the most discerning minds around. He had fantastic discernment, fantastic intuition. He could read people. We had some wonderfully powerful political discussions. And between those discussions, and he would love to talk about stories of the South. He was really a historian. I used to say, Gil, you're like a political science professor at the University of North Carolina. You should be teaching there. And he would laugh, and I would laugh, and Rachel would laugh. He really, really understood on very deep, intimate levels the history of the South, the history of the Civil War, the history of the generals. And here I am, a guy from New York City, and I'm learning things that, you wouldn't have access to, even if you were in a class in political science at UNCA. We were at Gil's home a couple of times, and he made some beautiful, beautiful meals for us. And Gil had this very, very wonderful cabin. I was amazed. It was perfect in every way, but just simple and functional and just wonderful. Yeah, Gil and I, as Jackie Boyce will share, went to the center with the Light Center. We had gone there a couple of different times at least. And Gil praised the fellow there. He was a former Navy captain. I can't think of his name, but Gil
Jim
mentioned.
Gore,
Yes, yes, yes.
Black
What was Gore?
Mountain,
Yes. What was his first name?
Jim.
Carol? Jim Gore. Yes. Jim Gore was a real hero of Gil's, and Gil really loved that Light Center very, very much. And it was a very special place, very high energy, beautiful, beautiful interior. Some of the just beautiful, I don't know what that sculpture or just this beautiful, beautiful amorphous form. Gil and Rachel and I took a long ride for a few days through Knoxville, Carolina, and some other areas. And he just, as always, would light up when especially was talking about aspects of the South. And we learned a whole lot about Knoxville and just some beautiful rivers that we were passing by. He seemed to know everything, no matter where we were, whatever areas of woods that we were in, or wooded areas. Gil had a tremendous, deep, profound relationship with Jesus. Tremendous. Just tremendous love for Jesus. And he would share it with me, and I would share it likewise with him. as would Rachel.
It's a little telling, Jeff, when you think about what Randy read that Gil said about the voice that spoke to him when he was a child that said, "You'll meet a spiritual master, but it won't be Jesus this time."
Isn't that incredible?
Yeah. And here you are,
Yes,
just feeling the impact of Gil's love for Jesus.
yes, very true. Beautifully said, and a wonderful, important reminder. Yes. Also, when Gil was a young kid, one of his neighbors said, "You're going to be a minister someday." And Gil Webb was a minister. In my mind, he was a universal minister.
Yeah.
I call him a universal minister and mentor. He never had ordained papers, but he was more spiritual than most folks that I've known on or off the pulpit. Although I've met some wonderful ministers and pastors. Just his presence, always natural, easy, relaxed, but exuding with a love and a warmth. Loved to be with Gil, and he loved to be with all of us too. I know he loved Cathy and Tom. We would talk about Cathy and Tom when he was at our house, and oh, he loved you, Cathy and Tom, very much. I'll just give it up to some of the folks
Yeah,
there.
thank you so much. You just
Yeah.
bring him
That's a
into my
great-
heart so
Great
clearly.
story.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Jackie?
Yeah, I can go next unless Cathy's
Wonderful.
getting
Wonderful.
ready. Okay. It's interesting, my relationship with Gil, because I totally got his spirit and we really connected, but we never met in person. And it's thanks to Jeff that we connected. What happened was I started leading these light prayer meditation groups on Zoom, and Jeff joined for a few times, I think, and he said, "Well, you need to meet Gil. I will put Gil in touch with you, my friend Gil." And Gil and Arlene never had very good Wi-Fi connection. And this was like around the beginning of COVID when these groups were starting. And so it was always challenging for him and Arlene, but as much as possible, I did an 8 to 9 p.m. prayer call every evening at the beginning of COVID. Now I do it Monday through Thursday evenings, Sunday afternoon on Papa Zoom, and sometimes 12 noon. That's gotten cut back too. But we connected because we shared the Baba connection and the Light Center Jim Gore connection. And Jeff picked up on that and put us together. And we had some wonderful phone conversations, and I really appreciated his spirit. And now I really wish I'd written down his stories because he knew Jim, and now I realize Jeff did also in the early days before the Light Center was built. And I came along maybe a year before the Light Center was built and was invited to be part of the Gore family and help out, and then was there for like 7 or 10 years after it was built. It was like my main spiritual foundation. And Jim Gore was my spiritual teacher and mentor. But Gil had these amazing stories of how Jim would just show up at his house over in Brevard or wherever he was living. And that was quite a trek. It was like probably at least 45 minutes away.
It was the switchback roads. All
Yeah. But Jim would come
was
over and show up in his kitchen or living room and tell them some profound truth, and that sounded very simple but was very profound, and they had that kind of relationship. And I just wish I'd written down some of what he shared with me there. And then of course he was involved with Baba and the Baba Center, and he had some great Kitty stories of how she would tell him, "Well, soon you won't need to go to the center. That's for people who need healing." Like she's trying to discourage him from going to the center. And he also had great stories about Tom Riley, which was the beginning of my having a much more profound understanding of Tom Riley, because he'd say, "Well, Baba told him once he was gone, not to come back to India and things like that. And he'd have these great stories of how he and Tom would be doing certain physical jobs together. I don't know if they're carpentry or what, but the kind of relationship they had and the way he talked about Tom and quoted some of the things Tom would say. And unfortunately, this was towards the end of Tom's life, because it's like Gil really made me aware, like, you really need to spend more time with Tom too. And when we first talked about Tom and Cathy, he didn't even know if Tom was still around. I mean, he hadn't been recently in touch with everyone. So I think those stories went back to the 70s. Certainly the Jim Gore stories were in the 70s, probably the early 70s. Jeff would know. But it was so special that we shared Jim Gore and the Light Prayer and the Light Center. And I don't know if he even got to see the finished Light Center, but maybe he did, Jeff, since you did. And Baba and Tom and Cathy and Kitty and my experience with the Baba Center back then was, you know, I had come to this area of North Myrtle Beach all my life because of family lands here. And in the 70s, I started opening up spiritually, but I quickly gravitated to the Light Center and Jim. That was a very important part of my spiritual journey. So I visited the Baba Center at that time, and back then you had to be interviewed with Kitty or Elizabeth, and I brought people there. So I got to meet Kitty and Elizabeth a lot. Somehow I missed Jane. I did meet Valji in later years. And it wasn't really till I came back to the area in the early 2000, after 10 years in Santa Fe and moved here year round, that I really started appreciating Baba, and he started reeling me in through his pictures and whatnot. But anyway, so you know, in the 70s when I visited the Baba Center, which is part of the smorgasbord of all the spiritual masters and New Age things. So anyway, I'm grateful to Jeff and grateful to Gil, and grateful that I got to meet Arlene a little bit on the phone, and right before our relationship, our being closely in touch ended, I would say it went on for 3 to 6 months, maybe 4 months. I don't know for sure now, but they joined when they could. Then he started having a lot of health appointments, and they had problems with the Wi-Fi. But I didn't realize it was his way of saying goodbye. I think he sent me a copy of a book he'd written, and then Arlene sent me a copy of a book she'd written with some of her stories of her spiritual journey, and some of them together. So I'm just very grateful I got to know them. It's a very unusual kind of friendship that we shared a lot of the same pathway, teachers, journey. We shared Baba, we shared Jim Gore, we shared Tom Riley, and yet we never met in person. But thanks to Jeff, and thanks to Gil, I just feel like I knew him, you
How
know, as if I
beautiful.
had met him.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you so much,
yeah,
Cathy.
thank you.
Yeah, it's rich. You know, there are a lot of threads that we've, you know, into some of my stuff too. But thank you so much. And Cathy, Gil held such a special place in your heart, and you and his.
I just, yes, so true. I think I mentioned to you, Carol, and I probably to Jeff and to Jackie, you know, that I felt that Tom was a true mystic, and I feel like Gil was too. I mean, they were really, in a certain way, living in another realm, or I don't know how to describe it. You know, that Baba exhorting Tom, make me your constant companion. I feel like Tom was really with Baba in a special way. I felt Gil was too. I just found this about 2 hours ago, and I had sent it to Chris. Did you find that, Chris? I thought this was so interesting. At one point, there were problems in Harrison. There was, I think, some racial inequality, and I don't know exactly what happened, but Gil sent me this page, which I would love Chris to share. He had made up, and this is sort of verifying or accentuating what you said, Jeff, about he was like a minister in his own way. So he had written, "It is hereby decreed in the name of Jesus Christ," and he had written kind of it's almost like a mini sermon. For some reason, I was going to Woodstock, so I put Woodstock, New York, instead of Harrison, Arkansas. But do you have that you could share that, Chris?
I do have that. Yeah, if you'd like me to read it, I'll be glad to do that.
Okay, sure.
Yeah, it kind of looks like one of those the city council or the state government makes a decree about something. So it is hereby decreed in the name of Jesus Christ, Harrison, Arkansas is now and will be a beacon of tolerance, acceptance, diversity, and justice. There is no bigotry, hatred, or human separation in Harrison, Arkansas. Harrison is a hub, a center, a capital of Christ's love, light, and spiritual healing. Harrison, Arkansas has no religion, political prejudice, hatred, or fanaticism. Its government, community leaders, tabernacles, and medical facilities are guided by the Holy Spirit and the Beatitudes and the true teachings of Christ. Everyone in Harrison, Arkansas is filled with Christ's love and light and is illuminated with the divine Christ presence. All the plants, animals, winds, waters, earth, soils, and atmosphere are filled with Christ's light and love. Nothing comes to Harrison but Christ's love and light, and nothing goes forth from Harrison but Christ's love and light. Nothing but Christ's love and light can be in Harrison, Arkansas. In the name of the Father, Son, and Holy Spirit, so be it, and so it is. In Jesus' name, amen.
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 Well,
That's a little.
that makes it sound like a sort of
That's a good
land of Eden.
that's a good sermon from an ex don't you think, Hindu monk, his last line?
Yeah, there's something about that you don't hear every day.
And I hear elements of the light center in Jim Gore too, especially in the last part of the prayer.
Okay. Yeah.
Thank you. I could go on and on, but I just almost think that I've almost been given so much by all of you. I'm just floating away in gillness.
Illness.
Not illness, but gillness.
Ah, sweet Cathy. Yeah, thank you. And Ralph, yes,
I
you.
lost the thread connecting
Gil was
Gil
a mystic.
and the Arkansas location, Harrison, Arkansas.
Harrison, Arkansas. That's when Gil got the inner voice that said go there, and he went there, and he and Arlene met and recognized each other.
That was in 2016.
Oh wow, that recent.
Yeah.
So Gil married once and to Arlene, whom he met.
Yeah, at the end of his life.
Inner voice only, just and named the spot, right?
Yep.
The Apleys lived in Arkansas. Did they live near there? I don't know where.
About 45 minutes away, Gil told me.
Oh, that close?
I see. Yeah.
You know, Ray
And
passed
also,
away. And
I heard so. And that Libby might leave Arkansas or something. I don't know. I don't know what happened after that. I got no news. I just heard that Ray did pass away. Yeah.
And Libby, I hear, is moving back to Myrtle Beach.
There you go.
Yeah. I heard that she might. I heard that was. I don't know. I just got that was grapevine. Yeah, along with Ray's passing. I'm not sure where I got it or from whom.
I think that's all correct.
Well, one thing I've got is those pictures from the obituary. I'd like to bring
Oh,
them on
yeah,
the
I think they're
screen, and we
That's
can,
what I've been trying to talk about from the very beginning.
so we can look at those pictures, and then the maybe y'all have some
Well,
comments.
can you stop for a second and tell people how they can get through the obituary?
What
'Cause
I
I
did
know I
just
can
today,
tell you.
what I did today was I just put in Gilbert Winchester.
You don't
Webb
need the middle. You don't need the
obituary.
middle. You don't need the middle name. Just Gil Webb obituary, and it'll take you
Yeah.
to it.
Thank you, Randy.
And say in Arkansas, because there's some not in Arkansas.
Okay, can you all see this?
Yes, beautifully. Thank you. Real
Mhm.
nice.
And so I think that must be little Gil right there in the
Yeah.
middle.
Yeah,
Looks
that's
like his-
Rocky in the front, big brother Rocky.
Okay, and his mom and grandmother, it looks like.
Mhm.
And it
How
looks
did you get these pictures?
well, they're at his obituary website.
Oh, I didn't see this picture.
Yeah.
Gil looks like his grandmother. If you take a look, there's a nice resemblance between Gil and his grandmother.
Mhm.
That's Gil and
It does, yeah. He does kind of look like her.
they're pointing their heads this
Mhm.
area. I'd say about 7 or 8.
Something like that. Sweet smile already.
It's great that they got the pictures on there. I mean, it's amazing.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's quite a jacket.
So this looks like it could be high school graduation or
Yeah,
possibly
or maybe a little
college
later.
trip. Yeah. That's the way I remember Gil. We
Yeah.
knew
That's in
we knew
the
him in
70s or early 80s.
yeah, and that's when we knew him. My wife and I lived in Columbia, South Carolina in the 80s, and so we would see Gil occasionally, and I remember what a sweet person he was. Didn't see him all that often, but it was always enjoyable. We went one time to that cabin up in the mountains.
Yeah.
And went on a hike with him, went to a waterfall, just beautiful area up there. I don't know if that's his mother or just a friend.
I
It's not
don't
the way
know.
I remember Nasa, but I don't know.
That's a hard one since it looks like it's a festive occasion.
Yeah, that's right. Everybody's dressed up
Wedding or
nicely.
something, yeah.
Yep,
It could be a wedding.
right, right.
That's the end of his life.
That's towards the end there. Yeah. Now, is that his brother?
Yes.
That's great. Yeah. Great
That's
picture.
great. They got the trees.
Yeah. Yep.
You know, one of the things sorry.
There's Arlene.
Yep.
Oh,
Beautiful shot of Arlene and
precious,
Gil.
beloved wife.
Beautiful shot of Gil. Yes. Gil's
Yep.
beloved
So-
Arlene. Beautiful.
Yeah. Yeah, and this obviously it certainly looks like their wedding day.
Yes.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Very, very sweet picture. Yeah.
Was he?
Thank you, Chris.
Gil's
That's wonderful.
3 years
You
younger
did a
than
great job
I
of getting
am.
those
Yeah.
pictures off of there. I wouldn't have been able to do that.
One of the things I just have to say, which I know all of us who were in touch with Gil, is that he was in such pain, but he wouldn't complain. I mean, it was just so inspiring. He would just say, "I'm in excruciating pain with the trigeminal neuralgia," but he would just state it, and talk about thinking about Baba and how Baba had the same ailment. And he felt honored that he shared that ailment with Baba. It was very inspiring the way he approached his end of life.
I feel the same as you just shared, Cathy. Gil would mention it and the severe pain that he was in. He never mentioned it after. He would just say, there's this pain and we knew it was very painful, but he did not complain. And I don't know if I could have stood that pain as long as he did and not complained. Never complained about it. Just
Mm.
like Jesus, he just accepted it. Extremely strong to endure that pain.
Yeah.
He was an exceptionally
Well,
strong
God helped him.
internally. Mm.
Also, one other thing I'll share here is, Carol, this is an email that you wrote, and it says, "Dear Ann, greetings and Baba's love. Happy New Year. I don't know who besides Cathy knows my friend Gil Webb, who used to live in the North Carolina mountains years ago. This is just from January of this year. And I had been thinking of him and spontaneously called today. Turns out he had a bad fall, shattering his shoulder, and is in nursing care in Arkansas. His wife Arlene answered his phone, and it turned out today is his birthday. I did get to talk with him a bit. And so it was just one thing after another. And I'm sure that caused a great deal more pain for him.
Yeah. Mm.
So a tough life.
Well, we have I really brought Gil so vividly, into our midst, and just really thank each of you for everything that you've shared. And like Randy said, he was prepared to read from the obituary, but you can find it just Gil Webb in Arkansas, and it'll take you to the funeral home where it's posted, and it's really, really beautifully written. But you've sort of
I
written
think
it
it's worth
yourself.
reading.
Yeah, you've written it yourselves too. All together, we've brought Gil into our hearts, into our midst.
Carol, there's just one more thing I just want to mention about
Of
Gil
course.
working with autistic children.
Ah, yes.
He would talk with me about when he was working with these kids. And he loved those kids, and they were exceptionally challenging.
Yeah.
I mean, really,
One
really,
broke
really.
a chair over his head one time.
Oh,
Yep, yeah. And he was able to just go with the flow and be very unattached and extremely loving. Uh, Extraordinary love for those kids as their teacher, and they tested him to the bone. They tested him through the bones. And yet he continued loving them, continued embracing them, and
that's a miracle.
he won them over in the most, miraculous, spiritually Christ-like way. The kids loved him as much as he loved them, and I mean, he really got tested so many times by those. I mean, those special ed kids, they're wonderful, but they're very, very demanding and extraordinary endurance.
Yeah.
I don't know anybody who had that.
He was directly drawn to that by Bob, according to what he was saying in one of the articles. He
Yes,
was sort of went through different things, and he was looking for, and then he just got the feeling that was without any education in that area.
Isn't that amazing? He was recognized. He had a state recognition for the contribution that he had made. Again, without a degree,
with no degrees,
but by living it successfully, from the heart, from the inside out.
And
And
they
he,
put him
his
in the Hall of Fame. I'm
Well,
sorry.
for our end, let's just acknowledge you, Arlene, and any other family members who might watch this as a recording at some point down the line. And our hearts are with you as you ache and suffer the loss of your dear Gil. And just know that there's really nothing to say because you already do know it. He's one of the most wonderful people to ever live. Really
You were the
rare,
love of his life.
special,
You were the love of his life.
really
He
rare,
loved you.
special.
I have a question.
So, yeah.
I have a question about contacting whatever you would call the family with a card. I already did it by email because it's on
Yeah.
the.
I have Arlene's address.
I'd like to get that.
Yeah, I will give it to you, Randy. Let me
it's-
look in my phone first of all, because I think it's a post office box. And if I have it right here, then anybody else that wants to send a card, you would certainly be welcome to do.
But on the website, you can also do email.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
I was the only one who did it.
Yeah, and you could put it in the chat too if you wanted to do that.
Carol, thank you for guiding such a beautiful time to be with Gil and us and
Oh.
Arlene. They're really a
Thank
beautiful.
you, Jeff.
thing.
Yeah,
Thank you,
so much.
Carol.
Mhm. Yeah,
Let
wonderful.
me, I'm just about, here she is. It's Arlene Flint.
What?
If you want to write it
I'm
down,
getting some.
because the chat is going to disappear in just a few seconds.
Okay, go ahead.
So Arlene Flint, and Arlene spells her name Arline.
Okay.
Flint,
Yeah.
Post Office Box 1354,
Yeah.
Harrison, Arkansas.
Harrison. Yeah.
Harrison, like George.
That's that blissful place where
AR, Arkansas. 72601.
say that again.
72601.
Harrison. Okay, I'll send her a card.
Yeah, she would certainly appreciate that.
So I thought they were still in North Carolina.
No, Gil's been in Arkansas for the last number of years.
Okay.
Thank you, Gil, for your wonderful life. You inspired us to love Baba more. You still inspire us, as you can see right now.
Thank you,
Absolutely.
everybody.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
All together,
Yeah.
Avatar, Meher
Meher
Baba.
Baba.
Jai.
Avatar, Meher Baba.
Baba.
Jai.
Jai.
Avatar, Meher Baba.
Baba.
Jai.
Yay.
Thank you so,
You had him much, much closer.
no, so much. Yeah.
All
And for
right.
all the tender care that you gave to Gil through his hardest times. Arlene, we love you for that.
Love you, Arlene. Beautiful, beautiful. You had one of the most beautiful blessings a person can have. The grace of God through your beloved soulmate. It's like one of the great few treasures that really, really mean everything. You were very blessed. And so were we.
Yeah.
So were we.
And we love your beautiful spirit, Arlene, that reflected Gil's and vice versa.
Truly, truly. Well said. Well, lots of love.
Jai
Love,
Baba.
Baba.
Mayor Baba.
Bye-bye.